Well, folks, the verdict is in, and it turns out the Supreme Court is not going to permit individual states to bar one Donald J. Trump from standing in this fall's general election based on the state's interpretation of the, the 13th Amendment? Or no, it was the 14th Amendment or whatever. And this is an interesting ruling because I expected from the very beginning that Colorado probably overplayed their hand and that their initial ruling was going to get thrown out by the Supreme Court, that it was going to be overturned in some form. But I expect always with the Supreme Court that they avoid setting precedent wherever possible. They like to throw out decisions that they don't like, but come up with an excuse to overturn those decisions without actually addressing like the main legal claim of the case and really clarifying the law and setting good case law. And so I expected them to kind of do the same thing here, to find some excuse to say, well, Colorado can't kick Trump off the ballot, but not have any sort of a real ruling on the concept of using the 14th Amendment as a state to kick someone off the ballot. But that's not what they did. By a decision of 9-0, they ruled states can't just do that. Any state. And so not just Colorado, none of these states who were moving, such as Maine and Illinois, and certainly other states after, I'm sure, they were all moving in the direction of taking Trump off the ballot for this reason. And the Supreme Court doesn't like that. They don't think that states have the right to determine ballot access for national candidates, which is interesting because ballot access is very difficult in most states if you're not a member of one of the two major parties. So that's kind of strange. It's I doubt that if this were a third-party candidate in the same case, I doubt the Supreme Court would have made the same ruling, because they would have been kind of challenging the idea, I think, of like ballot access in general. But this decision preserves the whole ballot access process because Trump, in this case, has already gained ballot access. He's just being removed from the ballot once he's gained that access. And so the court seems to be saying, and I'm not a lawyer, so this is why I want to couch these terms, and I'm not trying to do a legal analysis of this. I will leave that to smarter lawyers who I have some trust in, and I'll look at what they all have to say, and if any of them disagree, I'll try and reconcile that myself and figure out, okay, well, who seems to be more correct here or not. But generally speaking, the legal stuff is pretty dense and often contradictory, which is why I've kind of stopped trying to, because it's really easy if you assume that the law is supposed to be logical and consistent. It can be kind of easy to follow laws. I think that's how the founders probably intended law to be, but that is not how modern American law is. American law is very contradictory. And so what the law is on any given day can sometimes depend on whether or not the judge had his Metamucil that morning. But on this day, at the very least, it would seem that no state, not one of the 50 states, can use the 14th Amendment to remove Donald Trump from the ballot in this cycle. I won't state anything definitively past that, because everything can change in a year or even a few months. But for now, that appears to be the law, as stated by our lawgivers, because that's really what the Supreme Court is. They're not interpreters of the law. They are the people who make the law. Those 9 justices have greater power to make law than the entirety of the U.S. Congress. But in this case, it seems that they've actually, on net, by disempowering the state governments, they seem to be, on a relative basis, empowering the Congress, because they are now saying essentially that Congress has to be the ones under the 14th Amendment to go and try to disqualify people, which I believe is how it was done historically. So I guess that's what they're going. They're saying, well, back during the days of Reconstruction, it was Congress who acted, on the 14th Amendment to disqualify people. It wasn't states interpreting the 14th Amendment. Because remember, the 14th Amendment is a federal amendment. It is not a part of any of the states' constitutions that I know of, or at least unless they have some sort of mirror provision in their own constitutions. But anyway, moving on from this, and because as I said, you can probably get much better legal analysis almost anywhere else. As far as how this will affect the campaign moving forward, I don't, by a long shot, think that this is going to be the last attempt, or even the best attempt, to remove Donald J. Trump from the presidential ballot in enough swing states in order to throw the election to Biden. I think that they will keep trying, although the Dems do seem very discouraged by this development. They do seem quite at a loss. I'm not sure what the next challenge will be. I assume it will be related to Trump's many court cases. But who's to say for sure they could come up with something more convenient in the meantime. Either way, I think that the goal of getting Trump into prison to stifle his ability to campaign is in no way affected by this decision. And so I think that from their perspective, they still have many avenues left down which they may pursue their goal of knocking Trump out of the race, let's say, and make sure that this doesn't come down to a photo finish. Their goal is to secure Biden's victory as long before Election Day as possible. They do not want to get down to Election Day with this question in the air of who might actually win. The goal is to know with absolute certainty that Donald Trump has lost, that Donald Trump has been put down once and for all. And that's why they continue to persecute the January 6ers. They're treating them as essentially effigies of Trump, ritualistically burning them all. And once they've proved that they can take down Trump via such means, they will then move on to the next strongest candidate in the next cycle, knock them out, then knock out the next one after that, and just work their way on down the line. That is, until you end up with an opposition party that is once again in equilibrium with the Democratic Party, led by someone along the lines of a Nikki Haley or a Jeb Bush, but certainly not a Donald Trump or a J.D. Vance or a Rand Paul or any of these people who have said things that the media finds unsavory, even if they're not very strong on individual issues. That's not so much, I think, how this side of America thinks. I think that they judge, well, I should say this, both sides do this, they judge people by what they say, not by what they do. In the same way that the average, Republican voter thinks that Democrat politicians are communists or something. The average Democrat voter thinks that, a milquetoast Republican is literally a fascist. And that once they knock down Trump, there is going to be an army of Trumplicans standing ready to take his place as der Apfelstrudelführer. And so this kind of mania is not going to die down anytime soon. I think that the only way to end the coming reign of terror, because if you think things are bad now, they can get a lot worse, and they will, if this all goes unabated, is for someone to actually clean out and dismantle the administrative state, which sadly I don't think that Trump himself even wants to do, even after all that's happened to him. You haven't heard Trump once talk about abolishing the FBI or the CIA, or heck, even an easy one like the ATF. No one likes the ATF. People who drink don't like the ATF. People who smoke don't like the ATF. Like 99% of the black community, if you abolished the ATF, they would celebrate. Trump, you want to get some of the black votes? You're always talking about how you love the blacks and you want them to vote for you? Abolish the ATF and give them back their Newports. And of course, gun owners and anyone who believes in the sanctity of human life hates the ATF. I don't think I need to remind anyone listening about the events that went down in Waco. And so this is all very low-hanging fruit, and you haven't heard Trump threaten to abolish any of these agencies. Trump just wants to put his stamp on it. He wants to make it the Trump CIA. They'll be better. They'll listen to me. It's the same thing he said last time. And so I don't have a whole lot of hope for what Trump himself will do. But I do think that if he gets back into power, that these agencies will self-destruct even more than they did after 2016. And that opened up a lot of people's eyes for the better. There were no anti-CIA Republicans before Trump came into office, and they witnessed what the intelligence community does to one of their own. So anyway, with that said, I will see you folks back here in the next one.